The Golden Gate Ballroom of the Grandview Hotel sparkled with 1,000 lights. Each fancy lamp sent colorful beams across the faces of the nicely dressed guests. I stood in the shadows near the door, watching everything happen like a strange play. My sister, Chloe, the bride, floated through the crowd in her expensive wedding dress, taking compliments with practiced grace. Our parents, Arthur and Eleanor Sterling, followed her, looking proud and happy in a way they never did for me. "Just sign here, Miss Vance," the wedding planner whispered, holding out a tablet for the last payment for the place. I held back a smile at the false name I'd used to buy the Grandview Hotel chain 3 years ago. If only they knew that Pamela Vance, the mystery hotel owner, was actually Pamela Sterling, the daughter they said died 10 years ago. I signed my name and gave back the tablet, fixing the fancy mask that covered the top half of my face. The mask party idea was Chloe's, though I doubted she knew how perfectly it helped my plan. Behind their own masks, not even my parents knew the daughter they had erased. "The wedding was beautiful," I whispered to the planner, my voice having a slight French sound I used for my Pamela Vance persona. "Your staff did a great job." She beamed at the praise, not knowing I signed her paychecks. "Thank you, Miss Vance. We're so honored you came personally to watch over the Sterling wedding. They're one of San Francisco's most important families, you know." I knew them too well. The Sterlings had been San Francisco's old money for many years, their shipping business starting in the 1800s. That history of winning and being perfect was everything to my parents. It was why they found it so easy to get rid of their bad daughter. My crime? Refusing to marry the man they picked for me, the son of a rival shipping company. At 22, fresh out of business school with dreams of making the family company modern, I dared to say that forced marriages were old-fashioned. I said the shipping business needed new ideas more than it needed marriages for deals. The fight that followed still played in my bad dreams. My father's anger, my mother's cold disappointment, and finally, the last choice: marry Daniel Thorne or be cut off completely. I chose freedom. The next morning, I took all the money from my trust fund, a small $50,000 they forgot to freeze, and disappeared. I spent the first month in a cheap motel teaching myself everything about modern business, digital changes, and getting money for new companies. I changed how I looked, learned a new accent, and built Pamela Vance from nothing. What I didn't know then was that my parents had chosen to deal with my leaving in the most shocking way possible. Instead of saying their daughter had gone against them, they told everyone I died in a boating accident off the coast. They even had a funeral with an empty coffin and sad speeches about their dear Pamela, taken too soon. I found out about my own death 6 months later when I tried to contact my younger sister. The email I sent bounced back, but not before I saw her social media picture: Chloe in black, standing next to our parents at my memorial service. That was the moment Pamela Sterling truly died, and Pamela Vance was born. "Miss Vance?" The planner's voice brought me back to the present. "Would you like to sit for dinner?" I nodded, following her to a table near the back of the ballroom. It was close enough to see everything, but far enough to stay hidden. The funny part of paying for my sister's wedding and owning a big house our parents still lived in was not lost on me. Over the last 10 years, I had slowly bought every property the Sterlings used, every hotel they went to, and a big part of most of their business partners. They just didn't know it yet. My father's voice suddenly carried across the room, loud enough to reach my table. "Everyone, if I could have your attention, please." The crowd became quiet as Arthur Sterling raised his champagne glass. He looked grand in his suit, silver hair shining under the lamps. 10 years had added wise lines to his face, but hadn't made him less powerful. "Today is a day of joy," he said, "celebrating the marriage of my only daughter, Chloe, to the love of her life." Only daughter. The words hit me like a punch, even after all these years. "But it's also a day mixed with sadness," he went on, his voice thick with fake feeling. I can't help but think of our dear Pamela, Chloe's sister, who left us too soon. She would have loved to see this day. Beside him, my mother dabbed at her eyes with a fancy handkerchief, the perfect, sad mother, still mourning her lost child. If only they knew that lost child was sitting 30 feet away, controlling more money and power than the Sterling family had gathered in 6 generations. A server came to my side. "More champagne, Miss Vance?" I took the glass, using the moment to calm myself. I hadn't come here for revenge, or at least that's what I told myself. I'd built my empire through real new ideas, changing struggling businesses into modern powerhouses. The fact that I now controlled most of my family's business was just handy. "Such a shame about their older daughter," the old woman next to me whispered, clearly hoping to share gossip with the mystery hotel owner. "The poor girl died in a boating accident. They say she was quite troubled before the end, going against her parents, refusing a great marriage match. Some even whispered she might have, she made a vague hand motion." My fingers squeezed the champagne glass. Of course, they'd hinted my death was suicide. It fit their story of the rebellious daughter who couldn't handle their high demands, better than admitting the truth, that I chose freedom over their suffocating control. The sound of clinking glass drew everyone's attention. Chloe had stood to give her own speech, her new husband smiling beside her. My little sister had grown into a beautiful woman, though her beauty had a fragile quality that reminded me of our mother. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice having the same fancy school polish I'd once been forced to learn. "As Father said, this day is perfect in almost every way. The only thing missing is my dear sister, Pamela." I took a slow sip of champagne, watching her act. Pamela was more than my big sister. She was my best friend, my protector, my role model. Chloe's voice trembled perfectly. "When we were little, she used to tell me that anything was possible if you were brave enough to chase your dreams. I just wish—" She paused for effect. "I just wish she could see that I finally found my dream." The crowd murmured kindly. I fought the urge to laugh. Chloe had been 12 when I left, old enough to understand exactly what our parents had done. She chose their side, happily becoming the only daughter. The sister who'd supposedly been her best friend hadn't even called to warn me about my upcoming death. As dinner was served, I found myself looking at the main table. My parents sat there with Chloe and her new husband, along with his equally rich family. They looked like something from a fancy magazine, perfectly neat, perfectly calm, perfectly fake. 10 years ago, their perfect look had crushed me. Now, I saw them clearly, small people desperately holding on to old power, not knowing that the world had changed around them. The shipping business they ruled for generations was changing, and they hadn't kept up. Their empire was falling apart, held up only by the secret money I'd put in through fake companies. "Miss Vance?" A man in an expensive suit came to my table. I knew him as Mr. Thorne, my almost father-in-law, though he looked much older. "I hope you're enjoying the evening," I said. "I must say we were surprised and honored when we heard you'd be here personally." He puffed up at the compliment. "Yes, well, the Sterlings and Thornes have been pillars of San Francisco society for generations, though I must admit recent years have been hard." "Oh?" I kept my voice polite, though I knew exactly how hard things had been for both families. My companies had slowly bought big parts of their main shipping routes, making operations modern and cutting their profits. "The business isn't what it used to be," he said, sighing heavily. "These tech startups, these modern delivery companies, they're messing everything up. Why, just last month, we lost our biggest client to some new company called Horizon Logistics." I managed not to smile. Horizon Logistics was one of my first buys. changed from a failing local shipper into a digital delivery powerhouse. Progress can be hard to deal with, I offered calmly. Progress, he scoffed. In my day, business was built on relationships, on family connections. Did you know my son was supposed to marry Arthur Sterling's older daughter? Now that would have been a merger worth celebrating, but the girl had other ideas. He shook his head. Tragic what happened to her, though perhaps for the best, given her rebellious nature. The fancy glass in my hand almost broke. Before I could answer, a fuss at the main table caught everyone's eye. My mother had stood up suddenly, swaying a little. Clearly, the champagne had flowed too freely. "I simply must say," she announced, her voice having that strange exactness of the elegantly drunk, "how wonderful it is to see all our dear friends here, especially those who supported us after we lost our Pamela." I sat perfectly still, watching the disaster happen. "Such a difficult time," she went on, dabbing at her eyes, "having to tell everyone that our daughter, that she, well, the shame of it all. But we saved the family name, didn't we, Arthur? We gave her a proper send-off, even if she didn't deserve it." "Eleanor!" My father's voice cut through her rambling like a sharp knife. "Perhaps you should sit down." But the champagne had loosened something in my mother's perfect look. "Oh, but darling, I simply must tell Miss Vance what an honor it is to have her here. Such a successful woman, and self-made at that. Nothing at all like our poor Pamela, who thought she could reject her family duties and succeed on her own." She laughed, the sound brittle as breaking glass. "As if a Sterling could ever survive without family connections. Why, I bet she didn't even make it a month before." "That's enough." My father stood, his face red with anger. "Eleanor, you're making a scene." The ballroom had gone silent, hundreds of guests watching my mother's breakdown with shocked interest. Chloe was hiding her face in her hands, her new husband patting her shoulder awkwardly. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. The sound drew my mother's attention, and she focused on me with the strange intensity of someone truly drunk. "Miss Vance," she called out, "you simply must tell us your secret. How does a woman with no family name, no connections, build such an empire? My Pamela thought she could do the same, you know, thought she was smarter than generations of sterling business sense. And now she's, what, Mother?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them, my careful accent slipping. My mother froze, something flickering across her face. Recognition? Impossible as it was. But the moment passed. She blinked at me, truly confused by the question from a stranger. My father had reached her by then, taking her arm firmly. "I apologize for my wife," he said smoothly. "The excitement of the day, combined with the memories. Please, everyone, enjoy your dinner." He led my mother away, probably to sleep off the champagne in one of the hotel's luxury suites. Suites I owned, in a hotel I owned, just like I owned the mansion they still lived in, and a big part of the companies they thought were still theirs. I sank back into my chair, hands trembling slightly. I'd come too close to showing myself, letting old pain take over 10 years of careful planning. The old woman beside me patted my arm kindly. "Don't mind them, dear. Old money families like the Sterlings, they can't handle change. Today's world belongs to people like you, self-made, forward-thinking. Why, I heard your hotel chain is growing into shipping and logistics now, among other things." "Among other things," I murmured, getting my accent back. She had no idea that my hotel chain was just a small part. Through different fake companies and holding groups, Pamela Vance controlled an empire worth billions, built specifically to slowly take apart everything the Sterlings had ever valued. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of small talk and quiet watching. I watched my sister dance with her new husband, my father smoothing things over with embarrassed guests, my mother nowhere to be seen. They looked exactly like what they were, old things from a dying time, holding on to appearances while their real power slipped away. When I finally stood to leave, the wedding planner rushed over. "Miss Vance, will you be staying the night? We've prepared the presidential suite." "No," I said quietly, watching my father lead a round of toasts. "I think I've seen enough family drama for one evening." She laughed nervously, clearly unsure how to react to her boss's dry tone. I handed her a thick envelope, a wedding gift for my sister, though she'd never know who it was really from. "Make sure the bride and groom have everything they need," I told her, "and send some water and a painkiller to Mrs. Sterling's room. She'll need it tomorrow." As I walked out of the Golden Gate Ballroom, I heard my father's voice one last time. "To family, the most precious thing we have." I didn't turn around. Pamela Sterling was dead, after all. They'd made sure of that themselves. But Pamela Vance was very much alive, and she was just getting started. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed my assistant, Maya. "Execute Phase 2. It's time the Sterlings learned exactly who they're dealing with." The next few weeks would change everything, but that's another part of the story. The morning after Chloe's wedding, I sat in my penthouse office overlooking San Francisco Bay, watching the Sterling shipping vessels move across the water like tiny old bugs. My mother's drunken outburst had made me speed up my plans, but perhaps that was for the best. 10 years of quiet gathering had put all the pieces perfectly. Now it was time to play the game. "The numbers are in from last night," Maya announced, coming in with her tablet. My assistant of 8 years was the only person who knew both Pamela Vance and Pamela Sterling. The Sterling Thorne wedding cost them just over $300,000. They put it all on credit. I nodded, not surprised. "And their current financial position?" "Critical." Maya pulled up detailed spreadsheets. "Sterling Shipping's quarterly losses have hit $12 million. They've mortgaged everything they own, which technically means they've mortgaged everything you own, since you hold all their properties through fake companies. They're 3 months behind on payments to Horizon Logistics, which means they're 3 months behind on me," I finished. "What about the Thorne merger they're counting on?" "Mr. Thorne's company isn't in much better shape. The merger would be like tying 2 stones together and expecting them to float." I smiled, remembering Mr. Thorne's rude comments at the wedding. The man who'd once thought himself worthy of setting up my marriage was now drowning in debt, his company losing clients to my more efficient operations. "Send notices to all their major clients," I told her. "It's time for Horizon Logistics to raise its rates. Let's see how many stay loyal to old shipping methods when modern logistics could save them millions." Maya made a note, then hesitated. "There's something else. Your father has called an emergency board meeting for Sterling Shipping tomorrow morning." Finally, I've been waiting for this moment, carefully planning it through a decade of smart moves. Prepare the paperwork. It's time for Pamela Vance to make her first public appearance at Sterling Shipping. "Are you sure?" Maya's worry was clear. "Once you start this—" "They buried their daughter to save face," I said quietly. "Now they'll learn exactly what that decision cost them." The next morning, I dressed with special care, a blood-red power suit that showed strength, shiny heels that clicked like weapons on marble floors, and a small gold compass necklace that had once belonged to my grandmother, the only Sterling who had truly loved me. The Sterling Shipping headquarters hadn't changed in 10 years. The same grand stone building, the same brass nameplate saying, "Founded 1847, the same picture of my great-grandfather frowning in the lobby. But there was a feeling of tension today, nervous whispers and quick glances as employees noticed my arrival. "Miss Vance?" The receptionist jumped up. "We weren't expecting. That is, the board meeting is private." "Not anymore." I handed her a thick envelope, my papers as the main shareholder of Horizon Logistics and holder of much sterling shipping debt. "I have every right to attend." Her hands shook as she checked the papers. I watched her face turn pale as she realized exactly how much power Pamela Vance held. "Of course, 14th floor boardroom." The elevator ride gave me a moment to calm myself. In my ear, Maya's voice gave updates through a tiny earpiece. "All board members present. Your father's trying to push through an emergency reorganization plan. He still thinks he can save the company without outside help." The boardroom doors were heavy oak, reaching from floor to ceiling. I paused for a moment, hearing familiar voices through the wood. "Can't accept these terms," my father was saying. "Horizon Logistics is trying to steal our company piece by piece." "We don't have a choice, Arthur," another voice answered. "We're losing clients, our ships are old, and this mystery Pamela Vance owns half the ports we use." I pushed the doors open. The talk stopped instantly. 12 men in expensive suits stared at me. Old money, old power, old ideas. At the head of the table, my father stood frozen in the middle of a gesture, his face darkening as he knew the woman who'd been at his daughter's wedding. "Miss Vance," he managed finally, "this is a private meeting." "Not anymore." I walked to the table, my heels echoing in the silence. "Please don't let me interrupt your discussion of my company's terms." "Your company?" he spat. "Horizon Logistics is nothing but a new company using digital tricks to steal old clients. Sterling Shipping has survived for 6 generations and will survive for precisely 12 more days," I cut in smoothly, "unless you accept the merger terms I'm about to offer." I placed a folder on the table. Inside was the result of 10 years of work. Papers proving my ownership of their buildings, their warehouses, their homes, proof of their growing debts, their failed attempts to modernize, their desperate efforts to keep up appearances while their empire fell apart. "This is impossible," my father whispered, flipping through pages. "These properties, our house, the hotel chain." "All belong to me," I confirmed, "along with a big part of most of your remaining clients' companies. Face it, Mr. Sterling, you're not just losing, you've already lost." He slammed the folder down. "Who are you? Some tech billionaire trying to break apart an old business? You have no idea what family tradition means." I felt my carefully built mask crack just a little. Family tradition? I took off my designer sunglasses, meeting his eyes directly. "Like the tradition of forcing your children into loveless marriages, or the tradition of declaring them dead when they refuse to follow?" The color drained from his face. "No," he whispered, "it's not possible. Pamela?" "My God, Pamela Sterling," one of the older board members breathed, understanding dawning. "Pamela Vance, actually." I smiled, not pleasantly. "I took the name after you killed me. Makes for a better corporate image than being the dead daughter of a failing shipping magnate." Chaos broke out in the boardroom. Board members shouted questions, my father stumbled back into his chair, and somewhere in the building an emergency alarm began to wail. "Enough." My voice cut through the noise like a whip. "You have exactly 24 hours to accept the merger proposal. If you refuse, I call in all outstanding debts and sell your remaining assets to my companies. Your choice." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Father, you might want to check on Mother. I hear she's still recovering from quite a spectacle at Chloe's wedding." Security guards burst in as I walked out, reacting to some panic button my father had probably pressed. I smiled at them. They worked for me too, though they didn't know it yet. In the elevator, Maya's voice came through my earpiece. "Well, that was dramatic." They always love theatrics. I learned from the best. Your mother's waiting in the lobby. I stiffened. What? She arrived about 5 minutes ago. Looks like she's mostly recovered from the champagne. The elevator doors opened, and there she was, Eleanor Sterling, San Francisco society lady, perfectly calm, even in the midst of her world falling apart. She stood near the great-grandfather's portrait, and for a moment I saw myself at 18, standing in that same spot while she lectured me about family duty. "Miss Vance," she said as I came closer, her voice brittle as frozen glass. "Or should I say, Pamela?" I cut her off, but only in private. Publicly, I'm still very much dead. Your choice, as I recall. She flinched. "We did what we had to do for the family name." "The family name?" I laughed, the sound echoing off marble walls. "Take a look around, Mother. The Sterling name isn't worth the dirt it's engraved on. The only thing keeping this company afloat is my money, which makes it my name on the line." "You're enjoying this," she accused, "destroying everything we built." "No." I stepped closer, close enough to smell her familiar perfume. "I'm saving everything you destroyed. The company will survive, modernize, grow. The Sterling name will continue, just not in Sterling hands." Her perfectly painted lips trembled. We really thought you were dead? Poverty-stricken? Failed?" I supplied. "You thought your rebellious daughter couldn't possibly succeed without the family's help. That's why you erased me, because the alternative was admitting you might be wrong." A tear slipped down her cheek, making a path through expensive makeup. "Pamela, please, we can fix this. Come home." I'm not that naive girl anymore. I walked past her toward the entrance. "You have 24 hours to accept the merger. Don't worry, I'll let you keep the house. Consider it a wedding gift to Chloe." Outside, my driver held the car door. San Francisco's summer sun felt warm on my face, so different from the artificial chill of the Sterling building. I looked back once, seeing my mother's outline through the glass doors, small and lost in the lobby of her crumbling empire. Maya was waiting in the car. "Phase 2 complete," she reported. "The board is in chaos. Our lawyers are ready, and rumors are already spreading through the financial district. What's our next move?" I checked my phone, seeing dozens of missed calls from my father, from board members, from family friends, suddenly realizing who Pamela Vance really was. Let them talk, let them panic. The next 24 hours will decide the fate of everything they built, and everything I've built to replace it. Now, I said, we wait, and then we show them exactly what the dead daughter can do. The next phase would change everything, but that's another part of the story. The 24 hours I'd given the Sterling shipping board felt like the longest of my life. I spent them in my penthouse office, watching the sun set and rise again over San Francisco Bay, while my phone lit up with more and more desperate messages from my father. "We need to talk. This isn't the way." From various board members, "Let's discuss terms privately." From family friends, "Pamela, darling, we never believed." From Chloe, surprisingly, "Is it really you?" I answered none of them. Instead, I focused on the final parts of my plan, making sure every detail was perfect. The media had already heard the story. San Francisco's supposedly dead heiress returning as a billionaire CEO to take over her family's company. The headlines wrote themselves. "The Wall Street Journal is online too," Maya announced, coming in with fresh coffee. "They want an exclusive." Not yet. I took the coffee, breathing in its familiar comfort. Let them guess for now. The real story comes after the board's decision. And if they refuse the merger? I smiled, remembering my mother's face in the lobby. They won't. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from the board's secretary. The vote was in. Unanimous acceptance of Horizon Logistics merger terms. My father hadn't even voted against it. Perhaps he finally knew what was coming. "Set up the press conference," I told Maya. 2 hours. Main lobby of Sterling Shipping. Tell them Pamela Vance will be making a major announcement. And Pamela Sterling. I touch the compass necklace at my neck, thinking of my grandmother. She's done hiding. The lobby was packed by the time I arrived. Reporters pushed for position, cameras flashed, and a crowd of Sterling Shipping employees lined the balconies above. My father stood with the board members on a small stage, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. I made them wait 10 minutes, a small, petty pleasure, but I'd earned it. When I finally walked in, the crowd fell silent. I wore sterling blue today, a power suit that matched the company's logo, with my grandmother's compass catching the light. No more hiding behind sunglasses or French accents. Thank you all for coming, I began, stepping to the podium. My name is Pamela Vance, or, as some of you might remember, Pamela Sterling. The room burst, cameras clicked wildly, reporters shouted questions, and somewhere in the crowd, I heard my mother gasp. I held up a hand for silence. 10 years ago, the Sterling family announced my tragic death, a boating accident off the coast. The truth is somewhat less dramatic. I simply refused an arranged marriage and left to build my own life. My parents, finding this embarrassing, chose to bury an empty coffin rather than admit their daughter had gone against them. My father stepped forward, face dark with anger, but security held him back. In the decades since, I continued, I built what they said was impossible. Horizon Logistics revolutionized shipping and delivery, using modern technology, while companies like Sterling Shipping held on to old methods. We grew quickly, buying ports, properties, and clients, including many former Sterling assets. I turned to face the board members directly. Today, I'm announcing the merger of Sterling Shipping with Horizon Logistics. The Sterling name will continue, but the company will be completely changed. All current board members will be retiring with generous compensation packages. More chaos, more shouted questions. I noticed Chloe slip into the back of the room, still in her honeymoon tan, watching with wide eyes. And now, I said, I'll take questions. Miss Sterling, did your family know you were alive? No, they were quite committed to my death. Miss Vance, how did you build your empire? The same way I would have modernized Sterling Shipping had I been allowed, by understanding that tradition without new ideas is just slow decay. Mr. Sterling, your response to your daughter's return? My father stepped forward, and for a moment I saw something break in his proud face. Pamela, we thought you thought I'd fail, I finished for him. That's the problem, Father. You never saw who I really was. He aged another 10 years before my eyes. We did what we thought was right. No, I corrected quietly. You did what was easier. Erasing me was easier than admitting I might have had better ideas. Declaring me dead was easier than explaining why I left. Even now, giving up control is easier than watching your company fall apart under its own weight. Pamela, my mother's voice somewhere in the crowd, please. I ignored her, talking to the reporters again. The merged company will keep the Sterling name out of respect for its history, but make no mistake, this is a complete transformation. We're moving into the future, whether the old guard likes it or not. More questions flew, but my attention was caught by Chloe, pushing through the crowd. She looked different from the polished bride of 2 days ago, younger somehow, more like the sister I remembered. You were there, she said, reaching the stage. At my wedding, you watched us all pretend to mourn me. I raised an eyebrow. Yes. Her voice dropped so only I could hear. Sometimes I'd look at old pictures and think I saw you in the background at charity events, business functions. I thought I was going crazy. You weren't. Why didn't you tell me back then? When they first... Would you have kept my secret? I studied her face, seeing the answer. No. You were always their perfect daughter, the one who never disobeyed. She flinched. I was 12, old enough to know right from wrong, but young enough to be afraid of ending up like me. A tear slipped down her cheek. I miss you, the real you, not the sanitized dead sister they talked about at parties. For the first time, I felt my own calm break. I missed you too, but I couldn't be who they wanted. I had to be myself. Miss Vance! A reporter's shout broke the moment. What happens to the Sterling family now? I turned back to the crowd, my professional look firmly in place. They'll keep their personal assets, those that aren't already legally mine, and receive fair payment for their shares. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to save a company that lost its way. And the family relationships? I looked at my father, defeated on his own stage, my mother crying quietly in the crowd, Chloe torn between the sister she'd lost and the parents she'd chosen. Some things, I said quietly, can't be fixed with money or business deals. The Sterlings declared their daughter dead rather than accept her choices. That doesn't go away just because she came back successful. The press conference ended after that. Reporters got their sound bites, photographers got their pictures of the triumphant daughter who came back, and slowly the crowd left. I stayed on stage, watching my parents huddle with their lawyers while Chloe stayed uncertainly between us. Maya appeared at my side. The papers are ready to sign. Private conference room. I nodded. Give me a minute. When the lobby was almost empty, I walked to where my parents stood. Up close, they looked old and tired, nothing like the giant figures of my childhood. The lawyers will explain everything, I said professionally. You'll be comfortable. The house is yours for life, the vacation properties too. I'm not interested in leaving you poor, just powerless. Like you left me? My father said bitterly. I smiled without warmth. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers, accept a comfortable retirement, maybe even try to rebuild something like a real family relationship. Or fight me, lose everything, and prove that pride really is more important than blood. My mother reached for my hand. I let her take it, feeling her expensive rings press into my palm. We thought we were protecting you, she whispered. The business world, it's so hard for women. I pulled away. I know exactly how hard it is. I succeeded not because of the Sterling name, but because you forced me to fight without it. Chloe stepped forward. Pamela, what about me? You're my sister, I said simply. My door is open when you're ready to know me as I am, not who they wanted me to be. I turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Mother, the next time you're drunk at a party in my hotel, try not to brag about how you erased your daughter. It's bad for both our reputations. The paperwork took less than an hour. Signatures were made, hands were shaken, and just like that, Sterling Shipping belonged to the daughter they buried. The company would keep its name, but nothing else. New board, new methods, new future. Later that night, I stood in my office, watching the Sterling ships in the bay. Soon, they'd be repainted with a Horizon Logistics logo, updated with modern technology, joined into my larger transportation network. The Sterling legacy would live on, just not in the way my parents had imagined. Maya brought a bottle of champagne. To the merger. To the truth, I corrected, taking a glass. Sometimes it takes a death to bring it to life. Your sister's been calling, she said carefully. And your grandmother's compass? I touched the necklace. Grandma knew. She left me this compass the day before I disappeared. Said, sometimes the right path isn't the easy one. Smart woman. She would have loved seeing this. I sipped the champagne, remembering she always said the Sterling pride would sink us faster than any storm. My phone buzzed. Chloe again. This time I answered. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Really talk. Just us? I looked out at the bay where the Sterling ships floated in darkness. Come over. It's time you saw who your sister really is. After I hung up, I asked Maya to order dinner for two. It would be a long night of explanations, of closing the gap between the sister who died and the woman who rose from those ashes. But maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this. I wasn't Pamela Sterling anymore. That girl had died exactly as her parents claimed. But Pamela Vance was stronger, more successful than their wildest fears, and finally, absolutely free. The merger would save their company. The money would save their lifestyle. But the truth? That would save me. And in the end, that's what the story was really about. Not revenge, not money, not even family. It was about a girl who had to die to become who she was always meant to be. I raised my glass to the dark bay. To Pamela Sterling, I whispered, may she rest in peace. Then I turned away from the window and went to meet my sister, ready to begin whatever came next.